Chapter 8, Authentic Adepts as Transmission Masters, from the book In God's Company, Transcending the Fear of Guru Cults in the Integral Age by Reynolds. An authentic guru is a representative of the eternal self found within each individual, not merely a father figure or totem master. This difference between cultic totem masters and genuine spiritual masters is made by recognizing whether or not the guru encourages actual transformative growth and development to God realization. A true spiritual master awakens your true self, thus fulfilling the multi-level spiral dynamics in the evolution of consciousness. In contrast, the twisted totem master submerges the individual self in groupthink and regressive behavior. Genuine satsang is a spiritual process, activating the kundalini life energy, rising into the inner brain and heart. This circle of conductivity establishes the body and mind in a state of equanimity and alert peace, radiating from the heart as love, thus invoking the subtle psychophysics of a human being's esoteric anatomy. These are only accessed via the advanced practices of yoga and meditation, done in authentic guru yoga and satsang, transcending mere charisma or personality cults. Dick Anthony, an American forensic psychologist who was a prolific researcher of the social and psychological aspects of involvement in new religious movements, including the validity of brainwashing as a determiner of behavior, expertly explains the role of an authentic guru. Quote,
"The role of the spiritual master in multi-level charismatic orientations goes well beyond conventional concepts of teacher, instructor, and expert. What the master communicates and reveals is much deeper and subtler than formal instruction in techniques. The master is firmly established in an advanced level of transcendental consciousness and can directly impart transcendental experiences to the disciple. The consciousness that looks out through the eyes of a God-realized master is, according to multi-level charismatic monistic orientations, none other than the infinite transcendental self, the innermost reality of all apparently separate beings and things. The master guru is both an external person, human bodily form, and the indwelling divinity, transcendental self, within the disciple."
Unquote. Dr. Anthony is a trained psychologist who has testified in court about cults and brainwashing. However, he has also personally experienced spiritual transmission in the company of Meher Baba, the great avatar of the mid-20th century. Therefore, through experimentation and personal experience, he clearly understands the critical differences between a pre-personal cult figure and a transpersonal enlightened guru. One is ego-bound and power-hungry, while the other is engaged in a vertically transformative process of spirit baptism, revealing the divine presence of real God. In his book, Spiritual Choices, The Problem of Recognizing Authentic Paths to Inner Transformation, co-authored with Ken Wilber and Bruce Ecker, Dr. Anthony observes how this sacred and inner process is activated as he explains, quote,
"The disciple becomes aware of the master's presence within, and the task of spiritual practice is then to keep the master's company internally throughout the situations of daily experience. For example, with the admonition, 'Remember me.' This requires the disciple to develop remembrance of and attention to the master, which gradually brings about a thoroughgoing integration of the disciple's personality, since all aspects of oneself have to become somehow compatible with the master's company. This complex task challenges the whole structure of ego-based living, but the disciple is motivated by the supreme value of the master's contact and by the love that the master elicits, the love of God, unconscious for God conscious, as one master put it. Spiritual progress in this approach of guru yoga is strictly a matter of deeper or closer inner communion with the Master, that is, with your true self.
Unquote. I will personally confess that this accurately describes my experiences in darshan, or sightings, in Aditya's divine company, which later saturated my daily life and spiritual practice in the following years. By transcending and integrating the outer figure or human form of the Guru, we also realize our inner connection to God's radiant transcendental being. Then we recognize that everyone and every little thing, or holon, is the awakened heart of divine love bliss, a valid barometer of successful spiritual development. For example, Sri Ramana Maharshi, the great 20th century sage of India, explains the true function of a guru. Quote,
"The guru is both external and internal. From the exterior, he gives a push to the mind to turn inward. From the interior, he pulls the mind toward the self and helps in quieting the mind. There is no difference between God, Guru, and the self."
Unquote. In this case, Ken Wilber also acknowledges a potent truth. Quote,
In multi-level charismatic groups, a fully enlightened master is appropriately the focus of disciples' devotion and meditation. It is the single-level charismatic groups that give rise to perhaps the most severe problems because, while resting legitimacy on a soul person or totem master, they deny authentic, transformative development.
Unquote. In this case, true Guru Yoga Satsang, when properly practiced, produces a shared result, awakened consciousness, equivalent in both master and devotee. I have witnessed in Aditya's company only his great joy in knowing that I, too, had realized what he had realized. That we are one, there is only God, God only. True spiritual masters, like Aditya, want nothing more for his or her devotees. In his recent past, Wilber wasn't blind to this esoteric process of satsang, although he understood it more intellectually, rather than a devotional response from the heart. But as usual, he expresses it so well in his journal published as One Taste, where the Pandit wonderfully explains, quote,
The Guru, the authentic Guru, radiates the attractiveness of the divine, and this helps to awaken you to your own inherent beauty, your own spiritual essence. In Guru Yoga, there is an intense bond formed between the Guru and devotee, like between therapist and client, only more so, and that bond is an important part of the devotee's transformation and awakening. I suppose it's some sort of subtle transference process at work. The same thing, but on a higher level, seems to go on in authentic Guru Yoga. You, the devotee, project not merely your shadow, but your own true self onto the Guru. Now an accomplished Guru will use this transference to awaken devotees to their own true self, their own true Godhead, or Buddha nature. With Guru Yoga, you fall in love, deeply and desperately in love. And that love is the vehicle through which you much more quickly learn the language of your own true self. Precisely because this learning is driven by love, it happens more rapidly than sitting alone, in the corner, on your meditation mat, counting your breaths.
Unquote. Nevertheless, to outside eyes looking in, the questioning populace and peering skeptics, at satsang or Guru Yoga, the Guru will always seem to maintain a superior status due to the devotee's gratitude. But in essence, there is no difference in the prior unity of real God, whether as Guru or devotee. Nonetheless, we must use our discriminative intelligence and heartfelt intuition to recognize the real from the false. That is our responsibility in spiritual life. But once we realize this truth of the Guru, acting as God's grace, embodied as a person, then we must respond with devotion and practice. It is to this that the devotee witnesses and gives testimony. Dick Anthony's astute observations further explain the actual processes activated in authentic satsang with a genuine Siddha adept when he says, quote,
Spiritual progress in the multi-level charismatic approach is strictly a matter of deeper or closer inner communion with the Master. The ego is gradually attenuated, and the Master's presence, the disciple's true self, becomes more and more the inner reference point of consciousness, replacing I, me, and my. Eventually, the final veil of ego is lifted by the Master, giving God realization, union with the ultimate spiritual reality, which is the Master's conscious self. Whereas in multi-level technical situations, such as with a Tibetan Lama or Zen Master, the Master assists from the side, and responsibility for achieving spiritual illumination rests with the disciple. In multi-level charismatic situations, with a true guru, the Master is the central focus and final goal of spiritual practice, and the disciple is responsible for working towards deeper self-surrender to the Master. The Master bestows, via transmission, spiritual transformation and gnosis upon the disciple when the latter is ripe for it.
Unquote. Once more, Anthony describes the actual psychophysical processes that are activated in satsang when disciples engage their attention with an authentic guru. He describes how to go beyond cultic attachments and immature idolatrous fascination by seeing and realizing the truth of what's going on in genuine Guru Yoga satsang. In other words, it is about real God realization, not just mystical fireworks. It is about the transformation of the devotee into the pinnacle of human and divine potential, as he eloquently outlines below, quote,
Self-surrender in multi-level charismatic involvements is not a matter merely of symbolic or ritualistic gesture, but of actually relinquishing attachment to mental, emotional, and behavioral patterns that make one unavailable for the Master's inner contact. Surrender and obedience to such a Master differs fundamentally from the single-level charismatic syndromes of authoritarianism and the exploitation of disciples' neurotic or childish dependency needs. Rather than exploiting disciples' dependency needs or sheltering them from their struggles with life, the multi-level charismatic Master repeatedly throws the disciple back onto his or her own resources to find the Master internally and receive the Master's guidance. The Master orchestrates this ongoing, complex process in a way that reveals and resolves neurotic distortions and deepens the experience of contact with the Master's transcendental being. This process also teaches the disciple to discriminate between internal guidance from the Master and mundane, subjective promptings born of desire, imagination, and social conditioning.
Unquote. Consequently, I believe it is incumbent that we learn to differentiate and recognize actual cults and false totem masters from genuine gurus born to serve our enlightenment and by spreading love and peace around the world. Only then may everyone experience the Guru's mystical transmission and spirit baptism, serving our evolution to and in enlightenment or the God-realized state. The authenticity of an awakened Guru is valid whether a spiritual master appears within an esoteric traditional religion or if they bring their own unique revelation of enlightenment to the world, such as with Avatar Adidasamraj. Anthony once again expertly reveals this sacred process activated in an authentic, multi-level, transformative engagement between devotee and guru when he says, quote,
Mystical glimpse experiences in multi-level charismatic situations tend to involve the Master as both the trigger and the content of the experience. The disciple becomes aware of some transcendent dimension to the Master's being. Since the Master is the disciple's own real self, the experience not only brings the disciple into closer relationship with the Master, but also brings the disciple's ego into conscious relationship to the disciple's innermost being.
Unquote. This is why the call and demand of many spiritual masters or genuine gurus is to live with me and to follow me and remember me. That is, to realize our ever-present divine condition of reality itself as your very consciousness awakened in and as the heart. This is true satsang, or a true path of inner transformation enacted with a genuine guru. It is not egoic mind games, but the heart's revelation of real God in the present and forever hereafter. This has been an excerpt from Chapter 8, Authentic Adepts as Transmission Masters, from the book In God's Company, Transcending the Fear of Guru Cults in the Integral Age by Brad Reynolds.
You can buy both of Brad's 2 recent paperback books, In God's Company and the Universal Tradition of Global Wisdom, on Amazon.com.